Okay, so we're moving on to policy. So the third area for the board, for board work, is to establish policies. If you go to the statutes, and I know most of you don't walk around with a law book under your arm or sleep with it under your pillow, although you may find yourself doing so as time goes on. But there are these green books, the education law books that we publish, Title 16, and in that book somewhere, deep within it, there is a list of all the obligations of a school board, and the number one obligation is establish policies for your district. And of course, the next question is, what is a policy? So policies really need to establish what you want to have accomplished in your school. Again, think about the fact that you as a board member are not the operator of the school. You're not supervising teachers. You're not disciplining kids directly, although you get involved in some of these things in a way we'll describe later. But you're laying out the parameters. What's important? What do you want to have happening in your schools? What are the parameters? What are things that you feel so strongly about that you don't want the administrators moving into those kinds of areas? What are the values of the community that would inform how you're going to address certain kinds of student discipline or whatever? There are many legal obligations that you will learn about. You have to protect kids' rights. You have to protect safety. You have to deal with various kinds of harassment in certain kinds of ways and meet those obligations. You'll learn about all these things over time. But the board's job is to make sure that you pay attention to those things that the law says that you need to pay attention to. Risk management. One of the things that you should always be concerned about are you operating a district where good decisions are being made, where there's not liability all over the place, where people are attentive to those kinds of issues. And policy is one place where you'll have that kind of conversation. What are the biggest risks? And all of you have liability insurance. All of your boards will have liability insurance for your schools, and your provider, which often is VSBIT, but which is the Vermont School Boards Insurance Trust, but there are other providers as well. Your provider often will give guidance about areas where they want to make sure that you have policies to protect students and staff and the financial health of the school district. At the same time you're establishing policies, it is critical not to micromanage. Your job is to lay out the broad parameters and let the administration figure out the procedures for exactly how they're going to achieve your policies. It's also important not to tie the hands of administrators to make reasonable decisions based on the facts to preserve flexibility. So there are times when a board can get so prescriptive that at some point you find yourself with facts on the ground and somebody's trying to follow a policy that makes no sense given the complexity of the facts. So it's just something to remind yourself as a board member as you go forward. And the last thing I want to mention is, you remember Harry showed the picture of the old one-room schoolhouse and the supervisory structure. Technically, every one of our 280 or so boards is responsible for establishing policies. However, it is pretty tedious work, and and it's hard to keep up with it, and it's hard to continue to review and update policies frequently enough so that they're meaningful. One of the things that many districts have found has been helpful across the state has been to do policy on the supervisory union level. So, in other words, there's a committee of the supervisory union board that reviews policy on a regular basis, develops draft policy. It then goes to the supervisory union board for approval, and then it goes out to the individual boards for their stamp of approval. If a particular board takes issue with what's been developed through that process, they have the absolute legal authority to make changes and do their own variation. But that should be the exception, because so much of policy is just good practice and it follows the law. So you should be talking with your district about that, about exactly how you do policy in your district. So we have another poll, and this has to do with policies. All right, so have you read, the first question is, have you read your district's policies? And I know if you only started on the board 2 weeks ago, you may not even know if there is a policy, but we're just interested in what folks have to say about that question. This is good. We like honesty in these polls. By the way, this is going to go into our archives, and it will be forever linked to you. So,
just kidding.
All right, we had 92% vote. 55% of the people said they have read the policies. 32% said no, and 14% said they don't know how to find them. And that's on a statewide basis, that's not bad. If you don't know how to find them, you should be asking your superintendent or your board chair to show them to you or get you a copy or whatever. And if you know where they are but you haven't had a chance to look at them, it's a good idea to at least scan them so you've got a sense of what you've got. And if what you find is that things are really out of date, you should be asking the question as the new person, why are all these policies out of date, and what are we going to do to correct them? Because it's very important. The worst thing that happens is you have some kind of a problem. Somebody gets hurt, or there's some bad thing that happens in the district, and the first question that all the lawyers want to know is, well, what does your policy say, and did anybody follow the policy? And, of course, if they go and look, and the last time it was looked at was 1992, it is not a helpful place for a district to be.